Kim Jones, I'm in for Kay Adams alongside Nate Burleson, Peter Schrager, and Kyle Brandt, and it is time for
the lead block on a Wednesday.
Hey. Let's get started in Pittsburgh, where we got some news yesterday that will have a big impact on the AFC playoff picture. Our colleague Aditi Kinkobwala has the latest.
Tomlin announced on Tuesday that starting quarterback Ben Roethlisberger will indeed get Week 17 off when the rest of the Steelers travel to Cleveland. Tomlin said with the Chiefs having already locked up the AFC's one bye and the Steelers never getting a proper bye weekend all season, it was more important for Roethlisberger to get the weekend off. He said he wasn't concerned about any momentum carrying over from a good second half against the Colts Sunday, the one that stemmed the Steelers' three-game losing streak. He said just about all the other players would be playing, and it's up to them to maintain that rhythm. And as for Rudolph, well, of course, it's hard to forget that his last trip to Cleveland ended with Myles Garrett taking a helmet to his head. But before we talk about any of that, let's not forget Rudolph's performance in Cleveland. 4 sacks, 4 interceptions, and a big loss.
Aditi, thanks so much. You know, the Steelers sit in that 3 seed in the AFC. With a win over the Browns and a Bills loss, they'd move up to the 2 seed. For Cleveland, if they can get a win over the Mason Rudolph-led Steelers, say that 17 times. Hey. In Week 17, they clinch a playoff berth. All right, guys, after a 3-game skid, Pittsburgh got back on track last week in the second half against the Colts. What do the Steelers have to do in the next couple of weeks to make a run in the AFC, Peter?
Kim, I find it so interesting, this decision, because on paper you're like, yeah, rest Ben. Yep. They can still get the 2 seed. If the Dolphins beat the Bills and the Steelers beat the Browns, the Steelers are the 2 seed, meaning they might not have to travel in the divisional round. They might have to. Who knows what happens with Kansas City? Yeah. They might not have to travel in the.
They can host the title game.
Exactly right. Yeah. This really is an interesting decision, but it shows that Tomlin's like, we'll play anywhere. We'll play anyone. I just need Ben healthy. Yeah. I just need Ben to be Ben. And Ben played great in the second half on Sunday and was hero ball. But Ben was a lot better this season in the beginning part of the season when he was fresh, man. So I just want to show some footage of Ben early on in the season. Throwing the deep ball, because to me, this is what they need to do to get back on track. This is what they need to do if they're going to compete with Kansas City, if they're going to compete with Buffalo. Look, the Bills, they gave them the business on that Sunday night a couple of weeks ago, and that is fresh in everyone's mouth. Ben didn't look right. Ben was exhausted. The team was exhausted. The team is in the middle of one of these stretches where they were playing on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Mondays, and who knows whatever day you want to put us on. Things are going to settle right now. They might still beat Cleveland on Sunday, but to say we're going to go with Mason Rudolph over Ben Roethlisberger tells me that they care more about Ben being healthy and rested than they do about potentially hosting a divisional round game against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I don't think it's kind of refreshing that Tomlin knows his team. He's like, I know that we got to sit everybody. We don't have it. Just sit them down.
We're good.
You know
we need rest. And on top of that, it kind of makes you think the level of importance when it comes to resting guys and getting right versus going on the road somewhere, because this isn't your typical year, right? I mean, if this was any other year where you had fans in the stands, maybe he'd position his team to go out there for that home field advantage.
That's a fair point. Yeah. I think the numbers are crazy, actually. It's like 50% home field and away game. Like, and it usually is like 60-40, but right now I think there is no full home field advantage. Like, there's nothing.
Any other year, a coach would fight for that home field advantage. For me, I'm going with in a similar vein. Chase Claypool, he was fantastic in the beginning of the season. And I'm not saying that he is the go-to guy, but he adds such an element to this offense. In the beginning of the year, he had 6 touchdowns in the first 5 games. His first 5 games in his career, 4 of those were receiving, 2 of those were rushing. They were using him all over the place, outside, inside. They were handing the ball off to him. And because the other receivers are making plays, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, James Washington, of course, Eric Ebron, it put him in a position where this tall, framed wide receiver sitting at 6'4" with this crazy skill set was going up against second and third tier DBs, and it was such a distinct advantage, and he was almost unstoppable. I would love for them to get back to that, especially given the fact that the wide receivers, they got the rhythm now all of a sudden. They got their confidence now all of a sudden, and the world isn't criticizing them about the drops and mistakes and TikTok dancing on another team's logo. I want them to start off the game, I mean, really, be in a hurry to go to Chase like they're rushing to make a deposit.
That's good, eh?
That's good.
Everything seems to be under this umbrella of they have to get back to. Like everything we bring up has that. And it's a fool's errand at this point to start screaming at the Steelers, you have to run the ball. You have to. They know they have to run the ball. They can't.
Yeah.
They cannot run. They've tried. They know. They know what the company is built on. They know how the team is built. They can't run. But they got to still try. Over the last month, the longest run by the Pittsburgh Steelers was a 29-yard run by Benny Snell in a game that they lost to the Bengals. 43 yards a game over the last month is 32nd out of 32 teams. And you know what's weird about it? You know the guys. You look at the linemen. It's Villanueva, it's DeCastro, it's Pouncey. It's guys who have been there.
Yeah.
The only thing that really makes any sense about why they can't run anymore is Connor. Now, we're all going to bring out our footage from earlier in the season. It's warm, it's fresh. I'm going to bring out mine. It's the Steelers-Browns Week 6, and James Conner went right up the middle time after time, and they smashed Cleveland. This is vintage Pittsburgh Steeler football. Here's the thing with Conner over the last couple of months. He's in Week 11, then he's out to Week 14, then he's out to Week 16. I imagine we're not going to see him this weekend, so he's going to be out again. So do they have this guy? Can they count on him? Can they run the ball? Because the Steelers just saying, never mind, we're not going to do it, we're going to throw it 50 times, unacceptable. Remember a couple of years ago when Bono came out and said, we're not going to play our hits anymore.
We're going to do concerts.
We're tired of the Joshua Tree. We're going to come out and it's only new stuff. This really happened. You can look it up. We're only playing our new material, but still come to our concert. Everyone's like, can we play the hits a little bit? And they're like, no, we're done with them. That feels to me like the Steelers saying, we're not running. We can't. We've tried. We're sick of running. Ben's going to throw it 50 times. I don't think that's necessarily a recipe for. I want to hear Streets Have No Names if I pay $200 a ticket.
Sunday, Bloody Sunday.
Let's play it. But the Steelers have to run. They have to find a way.
Really quickly
on
on
Bloody
that.
Sunday for them.
It was. They had they had a great comeback against the Colts, and we all celebrate it, and it's great. But it was 24-7, and they had 4 attempts within the 5-yard line in the end of the first half or maybe early in the third quarter, and they threw, and they did not hand the ball off.
They ran on first down, and then they went into the shotgun every play.
And that, to me, is concerning, Kyle.
Because they got stuffed on the first one. I know.
Well, they got stuffed on the drive, so it's like,
I know.
Well, what are you going to do if you're not going to run and you can't?
We know they're going to be one and done. They can't do it. They're not good enough to just sit there and chuck it all day, Kim.
Yeah, a couple things I find really interesting. For one thing, players said in the second half Sunday, Ben just started calling his own plays. He was just drawing them up, and he was calling what he was comfortable with, and that's when they did come back. That's interesting to me at a couple of different levels. From the pettiness standpoint,